What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again. And this time we are here with the almighty Magnus Karlsson. Thank you so much for your time today. It's great to be able to talk to you about the new Heart Healer album.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah. So I really want to know the metal opera by Magnus Carlsen. It's scheduled to come out March 12th. I really want to know like how the making of this album was. How did the metal opera sort of like come to be with this real epic sort of sound that you incorporated?
Yeah, I always listen a lot to soundtracks and classical music. And a couple of years ago, I sat down and just tried to copy Hans Zimmer and those guys with orchestra samples and everything. You can do it really, close to the real thing nowadays with all the sample libraries you have. And then I got this idea because I would love to do a soundtrack or something, but why not mix it with metal instead and do a metal album with a lot of orchestra and all those things? And I asked my record company and they said yes right away. And then I also got the idea to have just female vocalist, because I worked with a lot of great singers, but not so many female singers. And I would love to do some more. And this was a great opportunity.
Yeah, and you had multiple singers come on this album as well. So it seems like having Edge of Paradise to Seven Spires to Annette from The Dark Element, ex Nightwish. So it seemed like every singer was able to bring in new elements to every song, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that they are all very great singers, but they're also very different. They have different styles, and some of them are more classical, some of them are more rock, and that was the goal. So not everyone sounds like Nora. That would be boring. But
Yeah, yeah. Because I noticed that when you brought Eileen, she was great in Sirenia, but now with her Chariot Awaits, that's more rock oriented, and I've noticed that her track like had more of like a rock sort of vibe behind it in a way.
yeah, yeah, she was great, and yeah, she added a lot of stuff, a lot of harmonies, extra stuff. So yeah.
Yep. When being that this is like very much inspired by soundtracks, and were you like approaching this with a different mindset or a different creative process than maybe what we heard in Primal Fear or any of the other projects you were involved in?
Yeah, normally when I produce and when I write, I think about doing a great song and then move on to the next one and then do the next one and do a great album. But this time it was more like one long song with different parts in. The whole album is like one long song. And yeah, it doesn't matter if one song is 10 minutes or intro is 2 minutes. But normally I think about that, the song has to be 5 minutes and I have to, every part has to be that long. But now I didn't have any limits, and if I wanted to do an orchestra part in the middle of the metal song, I could do it for 2 minutes. It doesn't matter, and it worked out great. So I think I will do more of this. I mean, for those who play prog metal, that's not something strange, but for me, I'm not so used to it. But I like to work in that way.
Yeah. Do you consider this Heart Healer album, being that it was kind of like inspired by soundtracks, and that like maybe this album is like very conceptually driven? Like, do you recommend like in order for a listener to get the full experience of this album, they should start with Awake and end with This Is Not the End, or could a listener maybe approach this album from many different angles?
Uh, you're absolutely right to listen from the start to the end, and that's why I thought it was a bit strange to have videos and singles for this one, because it's not the right way to listen to it. I think you're missing parts so you need to listen to the whole thing. Sit back and relax. Have some time, have a good drink, and like watching a movie. That's the way. So I hope that people can listen in that way. I know that everyone is stressed nowadays, and you only give a chance. You listen almost not a minute to a new song, and then you move on to the next one if you don't like it. But album like this, you need to give it some time.
Yeah. which is I think it's time that's worth. But like I don't consider it a laid back. I want to work out to this album. I almost want to like
Aha.
fight with this album. I feel like it's so triumphant. I think it, you know, with the difficult times we're in, I think it gives us a sense of power to sort of triumph over the turmoil that we are facing. I think that's how I look at it.
Okay, that's interesting. So you actually work out to the album?
Yeah. Yeah, you could work
Yeah.
out to the
Okay.
album, you could run to the album, you could fight to the album. I think that this album is
Cool.
appropriate for multiple settings.
Okay. Cool. Great to hear.
For you, do you almost feel like maybe like for people who have been following you from, you know, the days of Starbreaker and Primal Fear and, you know, Midnight Sun and all of your projects, like is it almost like maybe expressing a different side of you personally as well? Is it almost kind of like maybe expressing a side that we've never seen from your guitar work before or even your creative process?
Yeah, I hope so because I really want all the bands and projects that I work on. It's a lot of stuff, and I don't want them to be the same. I want them to sound different and I have a different approach when I write for Primal Fear or Starbreak or whatever it is. Of course, I work with different people and different singers, so that's also makes it different. But as I said, I think this time I could take a step back and relax, and I didn't have to prove, that I can write the best chorus here and I can play the fastest guitar solo. I could take it easy and make long songs and don't care if it's, a 2 minute solo or if it's no solo in it. That wasn't important. The important is the feeling, the overall feeling in the album.
Do you have a theoretical element that you apply to this? Because I've thought that the music incorporated in here, like you mentioned, you like classical music and you like, a lot of soundtracks. I mean, I consider Hans Zimmer to be our modern day Mozart in a way.
Yeah.
Like, do you apply music theory into your playing as well, or are you completely self taught and mainly base your guitar playing and your instrumentation on feeling?
Mm. I'm, educated in music, so I have the theory and I know it all. But when I create stuff, I try to forget it all. I think it's important to learn, but sometimes if you know all the rules, that can hold you back from trying stuff. So when I write, I don't care if it's not right. If it sounds good, it's good, and I don't check the notes and check, oh, is this the correct harmony or anything. I just trust my judgment.
Hmm. It's good. I was having a discussion with Tadia about this because she's classically trained in everything, but if she were to
Yeah.
show her classical music teachers Nightwish, they would be like, "This is wrong. This is wrong." I think it's good to know theory,
Yeah.
but you also should know how to break the rules sometimes to apply your craft.
Yeah. If you like it and it's good, then you don't have to care about the rules.
Yeah. Does the
And I have to say, I worked with so many great singers, and a lot of them don't know anything about theory or anything, but they are just great singers, and that's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. If it sounds good, what does it matter what was applied to it, you know?
Yeah.
Does the inspiration for new ideas like come out of nowhere for you sometimes, or do you almost like have a like we're in your studio now, and like do you almost like need to like do you come up with new ideas when you're more in the comfort of your own studio and like, or do ideas just sometimes strike when you least expect it?
Yeah, I always have ideas, and the strange thing is, the more I write, in the beginning, I was more scared. Oh, maybe if I do too much, I won't have any new ideas. But the more I write, the more ideas I get. So, and I think the biggest inspiration right now, that's when I don't have time enough, because when I know, oh, I only have 2 hours and then I have to take care of the kids or do something, then I have tons of inspiration and stuff. But sometimes when I know, oh, and I have a couple of days, I don't have anything planned, I can just be in the studio, then it can be a bit slower. So it's always good to have that time press, and a deadline from the record company. That's always good too.
Yeah.
Not too much of course, but a bit.
Yeah. Well, and you're working with the great people at Frontiers as well, and I mean they know what they're doing because I feel like Frontiers they bring like a lot of classic rock. I've always said that with albums on Frontiers, I either feel like I'm back in the 1980s or I'm back in the Middle Ages.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's a great record company, and I mean, we worked for 20 years now. It started with Last Tribe, my first band, and now they have all these great singers. And if I need a singer for something, or they need me for a project, there's a lot to do, and it's so yeah. For me, it's perfect
Yeah.
because even if I'm in a band, but I'm not touring so much anymore. I'm not touring with Primal Fear because it doesn't work with the family life and that. So for me, it's perfect to have a lot of studio job.
Hmm. And it's fun too because I feel like Frontiers. I mean, what I like is just people like to say that rock and metal is dead. I just immediately send them a link to the Frontiers website or their rosters because they have all these great underground like rock bands. It seems like Europe has been kind of like it seems like all of Europe lately has been one giant Sunset Strip lately for rock and roll.
Yeah, maybe. And lately, I seen that they signed a lot of new bands from all parts of the world, and that's really cool. And younger bands, so it's definitely not dead.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned being that Heart Healer was very much inspired by movie soundtracks. You mentioned Hans Zimmer. Is there any other like? Was there like maybe a movie or a soundtrack that ultimately made you appeal to this style of music? Because movies have so many different sounds and different movies have just as many genres as metal does now. So like,
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
there like a soundtrack or a specific movie that made you gravitate towards movie soundtracks?
Uh, there are so many. I think I often is drawn to the big epic ones. So if I see a movie like that with a big epic soundtrack, and it's often Hans Zimmer or someone like that, I sometimes just listen to the soundtrack afterwards. And but there is one uh, Polish composer that I listen a lot to. He did this show, a series Penny Dreadful. I don't know if you
I've heard of it.
heard about it. It's HBO, and I really follow everything he do. His first name is Abel, and his last name I can't pronounce. But yeah, he's really. It's so simple. It's simple, but he really knows where to put the violins and put every harmony is so perfect, and then the sound is perfect. Um, and yeah, so I can listen a lot to that. It's not so much about is it a good melody or not, it's how they are using the sounds, and where do they put the big drums, and where do they play soft, and listen to that, to the arrangement. And yeah, a band like Nightwish are really good at that. I watched them a couple of years ago, and that I was so impressed that they are going up and then go down in the right moment. And so it's, even if I didn't know all the songs, it was never boring because the dynamic was perfect.
Yeah, it's amazing on how certain melodies we associate with certain settings. Like, there's a certain sound I think of that I associate with space. There's a certain sound or
Yeah,
melody I associate with, like in certain time periods. It's amazing on how, like, the soundtrack to a movie can sometimes make or break the film.
absolutely. And there is a good video with the guitar player, the fusion guitar player Frank Gambale, when he goes through all the modes, the scales on the guitar, and he really explains if you play a Lydian, oh, then you get this Steven Spielberg vibe, and so you can affect people with a scale, and I guess that's why some people turn off the sound when it's too scary, because the music makes it more scary.
Yeah. Did you ever listen to or heard of the composers Two Steps from Hell? They write a lot of great movie soundtracks.
Yeah, I actually just today watched one from those. I don't know. It's many composers
Yeah,
writing for that, but
I think Thomas Bergeson is the main composer.
okay, yeah. And yeah, there was one guy on YouTube. He explained how about the arrangement and everything. And yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, Two Steps from Hell are one of my personal favorite like composers. In that, like they call the music trailer music because it sounds like the music
Yeah.
to a movie trailer. But that to me, like how they combine classical elements, but they've had elements of classical music, but then they just started bringing in some techno elements, and they could do something. They could make a movie like 300, or make a movie for or a
Mhm.
soundtrack for the Matrix. So
Yeah, I love that stuff really. And I mean, a metal intro with orchestra. That's almost like a trailer, I think.
absolutely. Did you ever explore or ever listen to video game soundtracks too? Hans Zimmer has done some video game soundtracks for like
Yeah,
Call of Duty.
absolutely. Yeah, sometimes that could be very close to the soundtrack, the game music.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I could see this Heart Healer album really being the soundtrack to a lot of Legend of Zelda games.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. Having many different vocalists incorporated in this album, I forgot to ask this earlier, but every vocalist has their own range, their own pitch, their own style. Do you sometimes have to like adjust the guitar sound or adjust the guitar effect to suit their vocal style?
Not so much. It's more how I write the melody for them. If I write it, if the melody is too high or low or something. And some of them I haven't worked with them before, so it was, I took a chance, and I didn't hire a demo vocalist. So I sang all the demos myself, and you can imagine it was way too high for me. It sounded like a metal Bee Gees or something, and but it worked out. They understood the vibe, and they are very professional. But it, I don't, but to answer your question, I don't think it's about the guitars. It's about the whole arrangement. If I know that they're gonna sing low and soft, then I have to take away a lot of instruments to leave space for them. But are they singing on very high, a strong high note, then I can take the whole band and orchestra at the same time, and it will work.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a lot to do with the arrangement.
Mm-hmm. And did they all write the lyrics to this too? Because like I'd imagine that like did like all the vocalists maybe have to communicate with each other to like be like, okay, this is what this song is about, lead it into this or something like that. It seems like a very collaborative
I did that
project.
work. I did that work, so they didn't have to talk. I wrote the story, the lyrics, and all the parts, and decided,
Mm-hmm.
who's gonna sing it. So that was the hardest part for me. The music was the easy and fun part, and then when I came to the lyrics, then I almost gave up, and because it's not enough, to write a great song. You have to think of the whole album.
Yeah.
That was a bit harder.
Yeah, when I was listening to this album, I had a funny name for it. I called it a symphonic Roadrunner United, kind of like because the Roadrunner United album had all these different guests and all these different singers, and I was like,
Okay.
yeah. So, but and then this, to bring in so many great artists who work in the symphonic metal realm and stuff. I feel like that this is any Nightwish or any Ad Infinitum, any Epica or Within Temptation fans like dream compilation album.
Yeah. Great.
Yep. And did you think of this concept before you wrote the music in a way? Like, do you feel like that maybe like the story or a concept could influence the sound itself as well?
I started with the music, and then I got to the story afterwards. So, but I knew I wanted to do something big and epic, and the story came later. Yeah.
Okay. And is the music, do you consider this album to be open to interpretation, or do you try to engage the listener into the story as much as the music itself?
Both, because I learned during the years when I've written a lot of lyrics that people think about different stuff, even if I sometimes are very clear about what it's about. And so I like it to be open, but you still can follow the story if you want. So.
Yeah, I like how this album. I feel like this album is both very literal, but also very metaphorical. I could see this album resonating with people personally, but I think the music is engaging enough to the point where they're gonna want to know what was in your mind when you wrote this.
Yeah, yeah, but it is about when the heart healer Adrian that plays the main role. I mean, when she helps people and not everyone is happy about it, and if even if she's doing good stuff, if you can't understand how she's doing it, then people are getting scared and afraid, and it's people can even hate her for that. And I think that's a strange thing. If I do something great, but people don't, how does he do it? What is it? Something evil behind it? I mean, so it's a lot about that.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yep. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, I think this is a great album. People need to hear this. It's a great year for like this symphonic metal with Epica's new album coming out and the Phantom Elite album coming out and so many other great bands. Can you see yourself maybe making another Heart Healer album or exploring in this creative vein again with bringing in many vocalists? Like, do you think that maybe this opened up more doors for the future?
Absolutely. The plan is to continue this, and I really like to work like this too, with a big, orchestra sound, and also to not have the song rules or what we call it.
Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely get a Heart Healer Part 2 in the future.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. I'm looking at that computer screen, hoping that maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, this is actually the next Ferryman I'm working on.
Oh, wow.
With Ronnie Romero.
Oh, wow. You've been keeping busy, and we always look forward to seeing what you're going to come up with next. You're a guitar mad scientist, so.
Thanks.
But thank you so much, Magnus. Everybody, Magnus Karlsson, Heart Healer, the metal opera by Magnus Karlsson. Be sure to pick that up March 12th via Frontiers. You will not regret it. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.